Good afternoon and welcome to the HR Business Services Committee meeting today, February 13th, and we're going to get started at 4:35 today. We have no guest presentations for this meeting, so we'll start out with our departmental reports, go right into human resources. Executive Director Severance, what do we have going on this month?
Thank you. As you'll see, which we're always happy to see, we have more new hires than we do have resignations and retirements, primarily in our non-certified, but that is where we've really been lacking staff, so it's really great to see the new hires. We started an HR newsletter for all staff in January, the end of January, adding some topics, and this is kind of our response to wanting to get information out to staff related to EAP, the other offers and benefits that we can provide, plus just some healthy information related to wellness and other things about payroll and different things that they'll need to know from an HR department. So we'll be putting this out once a month, similar to what Assistant Superintendent and Superintendent Magus do, that just giving more information just in a different lens. Attended a job fair last week that was our Hermantown Chamber of Commerce, which was located actually at the Clyde Center, and it was a really well attended. Our staff was very pleased with the number of potential applicants that we received at our table, and so we were really hoping that we have a number of hires based on that. And then we have a couple other job fairs that will be coming up. We have the job and career fair that'll happen at our high schools in April, so we'll be attending there to talk to the kids about what it would be like to have a job with the Duluth Public Schools and all the opportunities that we have here, especially for summer work, but ongoing work as well. And then there is a job fair that replaces the Minnesota State Job Fair that'll be happening in Rochester, primarily for certified staff, that will happen in April as well. Working on processes, this is a big time of year for reporting and making sure things are filing, W-2s, 1095s, pay equity, civil rights data collection, Affordable Care Act, those are all items that have to be done first part of the year, so we've been working diligently on getting all those reports in and on time. Benefits team had a retirement session as we continue to do that on January 17th, and then we have the TRA that came to this building for local TRA members, the Teachers Retirement Association, to learn about pension and retirement benefits the end of January. The Calm Challenge came to an end, and we had a nice prize that went out to one of the staff. And then, as mentioned before, the ACA and the 1095 reports that come through our benefits team have been diligently working to get those done by the end of this month. Hiring updates. See the jobs that we have posted. We still have quite a few non-certified positions available, and just a handful of certified staff, really for replacements, mostly for people that are out on leave. Contract negotiations. I think previously to this group, I had brought forward that the ISPEC contract would be coming, and then it didn't because we had some additional conversations. We now have a tentative agreement, and actually that was voted on by their group with yes. So we will be bringing that forward to the board at the end of this month for approval. We are hoping that in March we will have an agreement with the Duluth Federation of Teachers brought forward to the board. We do have a potential tentative agreement, and they will be voting on that contract, I believe, March 14th. We will be still active in negotiations with our education directors. We have a meeting coming after the school break at the end of this month. Clerical unit have been waiting for teachers, so they have not yet provided dates of when they want to meet. And then the DWIA, as I've reported before, have not requested to meet, so we have not started with them. And then new to the conversation here, the National Conference of Firemen and Oilers, whose contract ends this year. They're off cycle to every other contract. We have talked, and they are willing to start negotiations relatively soon. So we're hoping that we can get those started here in the next month.
So Director Severance, we're getting close to having the majority of our contracts settled then, correct?
We are.
That's
yes.
great. And it's just really the district-wide instructional administrators there and the firemen and oilers that we're just waiting for those times to get that
and
stuff started.
And the directors.
And the
education
directors.
Yep.
Okay.
But we have met with the education directors.
Okay.
So we're kind of just doing some other negotiations, but we're getting there with them. It's just been slow.
And then as well, there would be the individual contracts for the Assistant Superintendent and Executive Director for Business Services and Executive Director for Human Resources and Operations that we'll need to complete and work through.
I have some ideas for the assistant superintendent, some stuff in his contract that I want to bring up with the superintendent.
I suggest a do not leave clause for all three.
I agree with that, too. But maybe some time in there for our assistant superintendent to get that terminal degree done, huh? All right.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
So how many contracts are we talking, like, on any given year within the district that you have?
We have 11 bargaining units, and the only one that's off-cycle is our maintenance unit, which is the Oilers. Yep. And just to follow that up, all the contracts, with the exception of the maintenance unit, are 2-year contracts. So we usually get a year break. However, by the time we get them negotiated, it's almost a year that has passed. So, and then the Oilers is a 3-year contract.
Do we have any other questions for Executive Director Severance? All right, great. Let's move on next to Business Services, and we'll start out with an enrollment report. Our enrollment is holding at 8,068 and 0.73 of some poor child out there. And just again, to remind our public, we are above what we've budgeted for, which was around 7,900. And then in addition, we've been seeing the trend continue since post-COVID that students and their families are coming back to the Duluth Public Schools. So that's something we love to see. Do we have any questions on the enrollment report? And I just want to compliment Kayla for this new enrollment report. I think it's much easier to understand than what I've looked at earlier. So give her my thanks for all the work she's done on that. Moving on to the Child Nutrition Departmental Report, we see, as we've seen for the year, we see a continuation of increase in breakfast and lunch for our students. We love to see that. We are introducing in the district a new child nutrition computer system that should make it a little bit easier for our families across the district. And this system is part of the Infinite Campus system, correct? And just a quick question, will families be able to pay their bill through this system?
That's a great question. I'll have to follow up with that.
That's more for me, for paying my kids' bill than it, no, I'm just kidding.
But this is going to take the place of that other system. What was it called? PayPams. We're not
PayPal.
going to use PayPams anymore? Will that money automatically transfer over for families?
That is yes, that's what will happen.
Okay.
And the Nate Kinsey is already working diligently on that and starting the transition.
Perfect.
Great, thank
So
you.
is this over and above what the state provides? So can you explain that to me, please? So why would families need to pay if
So like, they get their first meal and the fruit and the veggies and all that stuff
They want
is free
something
if they
extra.
want something else, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I'm correct on that? I didn't mean to jump in on that. Do you have any other questions, Member Banks? Great. We have some farm-to-school activity. It's great to hear that we have some carrots that came out of a food farm in Esco from our Fresh Fruits and Vegetable Grant, and those are going to go to our students at Myers-Wilkins. This is great because we also combine this farm-to-school activity with some education with our students about what sorts of food they're eating and then where that food is coming from. We've also purchased some wild rice from Masters Maples in Cohasset, and students will be enjoying that wild rice in some school lunches for wild rice soup. And then after the wild rice purchases, our funds for the 2023-24 school year will be used up as child nutrition tries to buy locally whenever we can, but we also have some fiscal responsibilities to our taxpayers in the district. Finally, we have a wellness assessment. That's a triannual wellness assessment that we'll be doing this year. This is working on committee formation and paperwork required for this assessment. During the pandemic, parts of the wellness requirement were waived, and my assumption is that those will be back since we are past that part. Do we have any questions for the Child Nutrition Departmental report? I want to know when the wild rice soup is being served. Moving on to the facilities, facilities management, maintenance, and operations. Facilities have completed 326 work orders and are currently working on 291 that are open. They are working on constructing the new computer maintenance management system operational framework, and they're beginning the fixed asset data entry. Executive Director Zunich, is there anything, is this just a new system that we're using to manage our facilities? Yes.
Executive Director
Oh, that's right,
Teresa Severance can
facilities,
answer
sorry,
that
I had
question.
it mixed up, sorry, Executive Director.
Yes, the CMMS system is an asset management system that's will be new to the district, but what it also does is it ties work orders to the assets. So we can do some automatic reordering, we know what we have on hand, what we don't have on hand.
Great.
And then work orders become quite seamless, how they get entered and then how they get dispersed. So it's a better tracking system, not only for inventory and assets, but also for the work getting done and how we attach the cost to the work getting done as well.
Great, thank you for that. And my apologies, I get them mixed up sometimes. And then the general public might be interested to hear that as of, on February 24th, the district will be having an auction of surplus items at the Garfield Building. When we move on to capital and construction, I drove to Denfeld the other day and I saw Smith Bell and Clock pulling off and working on the clock tower. So that was a lot of fun. There was a lot of students staring up at the Denfeld clock tower. We've all looked at the school board has had the opportunity to look at the Duluth News Tribune building schematic design, and that's pretty exciting. We're going to be beginning mechanical, electrical, and structural engineering. We're also looking at some bids that have been posted in the DNT for Homecroft. Some Lowell work is being done. ICS was on site for that. Horizon Pools has been awarded the bid for the Lincoln Park pool renovation, and I know those students at Lincoln Park will be excited when that work is complete. And then we have requests for quotes for our Lincoln Park pool sand filtration system. We're also in some discussions with legal representation with Sedgwick Incorporated for some damage that has been done at the Lowell loading dock wall, and so we'll be looking at some quotes for that. Building operations are moving along. We have a lot of positions left in maintenance that we're looking to fill those positions. We're looking to fill some engineering two positions at Lowell and Myers, some second shift engineers at Denfeld and Lincoln Park, also at Lakewood, Lester Park, and Rock Ridge, and the new DSC building, and some custodial positions at East, Ordine, and Congdon.
Just to comment back on the Duluth News Tribune building, we are, and sometimes we call it the former Duluth News Tribune building, but we want to work with the board and with the public to think about the renaming process. And I know, Member Banks, you had some thoughts, and we want to make sure that we go through there's a policy that addresses renaming, and that's something that we want to pursue just because we want to give it both new life and new name. But that's down the road.
Great. So then there's a few health, safety, and environmental management things that that have been looked at this week. But basically, that is our facilities management and capital project status report. And is there any questions on that?
Does the new CMMS, does that track depreciation, or is that something that's more tracked in your purview? Or how does that connect?
We do track that as part of the audit. So that's part of our audit process. And when we do an inventory, and then we work with the auditors on doing the depreciation. So it will not do that for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
The auditors are heavily involved in that process too, so.
All right, moving on to our technology report. This is always pretty staggering when we think about 1.5 million emails have gone through, been assessed, and delivered within our system. We have around 11,000 active Google accounts. We have about 25 terabytes of storage. And so far this month, it doesn't look like we have any E-rate or RFP bids. We have some as usual, we can see that our help desk tickets are humming along quite extensively. And then we have a remaining 2023 summer project update, the DSC Boardroom AV. They're going to be on site here. No, they were on site on Friday, January 12th, and we got this room up and running, so that's great to see. Do we have any questions on technology? Moving on to transportation. Staffing is continuing to be a challenge here. If you look back to our HR, you can see, I think we have 3 bus driver positions. For transportation, we need 6 bus helpers, 3 bus drivers, and 1 van driver. So we are still looking for people to come in and work for us in our transportation department. We're very thankful to Assistant Transportation Manager Joe Killian for all the work he's been doing with the staff, and at times when he goes ahead and goes in and subs are out, so we appreciate that. I know we've been having challenges hiring drivers because the process can be a little bit cumbersome, and that's not on us, but on the federal government Department of Transportation regulations, correct? Our buses are still having some issues because they're a little older and they're a little rusty, but our team does a great job keeping them up and running, and our new transportation building is really going to be a saver to keep our buses running longer. Our oldest bus is from 2010, the next oldest are in the 2011s, and we have, our average bus mileage is about 108,000, and that does continue to go up. Do we have any questions on the departmental transportation report? All right, now we move on to our recommended resolutions. These will be off of the consent agenda. And our resolutions for this month is acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools. I want to note this month we have a huge number of donations that have gone for our Area Learning Center, our ALC, for our student holiday auction, and just a few of them. We've had A&L Properties. We have a number of citizens who've contributed, Fitger's Bookstore, and quite a few anonymous donations. So we want to thank all of those people that are contributing and helping us with that holiday auction. And I encourage our community to go ahead and take a look at that resolution and see the number of donations that are given to our schools each year so that we can, through the generosity of our community. Do we have any questions on any acceptance of donations, or anybody want to point out a specifically interesting donation that they saw when they looked over? There were a lot of good ones.
I thought the donation to Denfeld from Wagon Tails Boarding for robotic use was interesting. I'd like to know more about the robotic use of the kennel.
Of the Wagon Tails. I think we'll do a little bit more investigation on that one,
Thank you.
Superintendent May. I noticed that one too. I thought it was cute. And then also pointing out to North Shore Bank that they did unpaid lunch balances from the 2022-2023 school year at Lester Park of $332. Thank you to North Shore Bank. That's amazing. We appreciate it.
Member Sadowski?
Sorry,
did you have
Member
a question?
Sadowski,
No,
I
that
spoke
is
over you.
okay. I'm glad you pointed that out because that's really generous of them to help with that. And
Very generous.
as we talked about earlier with our lunches increasing and the debt from last year, we've said it before, but we recognize that there's a lot of students who were not qualifying for maybe a free lunch, but then were, maybe incurring debt or not getting those lunches, and so it's but we're thankful to our community. I was just going to point out that I also saw some of our staff from the ALC donating things, and just really generous because they go above and beyond, like all of our teachers do for our students, and then to be donating as well. I thought that was pretty special.
Really talks about commitment to our mission, which is amazing to see. So that is our acceptance of donation. Things that are going to be moving on to our consent agenda is our HR staffing report, and that's pretty common. And I'd like to turn it over to Executive Director Severance to talk about the job description for systems administrator and database programming.
Thank you. This job description was a result of a reclassification request from 2 employees serving in different job classes, but really doing similar work. The work identical, except that the systems they support are different, but they go hand in hand. Their primary role, as you can see, is really just being the administrator for these systems and helping wherever the help is needed to support the users, as well as the backside. So they're doing a lot of the making sure the things talk to each other, making sure all the systems flow, running reports, kind of the really high technical level work within the databases. Primarily, the Skyward and Infinite Campus are the two big pieces that those two employees had served. Again, they came out of two different job classifications, but because their jobs were very similar to each other, through the process of reclassification, we agreed upon this new job description that better covers the work that they're doing and at the level that they're doing at and their high level of responsibility with the systems. We've made it generic enough that it really would support other positions if we have different systems, so it's not specific to Skyward or to Infinite Campus, but really just the work that needs to be done on any kind of database program.
Great, so these positions are already filled. We won't be advertising for these positions, it's just reclassification.
Correct. They will
Okay.
both be reclassified into this one job description.
And did we had a reclassification of jobs last month as well, or was that a couple, but this is a different,
This is different.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Do we have any questions for Executive Director Severance on this this classification of this job description? All right, moving on to our finances, you can look at our financial report for February. Executive Director Zunich, is there anything that we should be paying attention to in this report?
Thank you. No, we're just trending, we're halfway through the school year as far as payroll. We've finished month 7 as far as expenditures. So I have provided those percentages on the side. Thank you, Sheila, for putting this report together. We'll start showing some more expenses in Fund 6 when we start doing work on the former D&T building, so you'll start seeing some expenses there. And we've tracked the 160 ESSER spending so far. Bottom left-hand corner, we've spent $3.9 million. So we've broken it down by program as well. And in extracurricular, we have revenue of $341,091 and expenses of $341,952. And my plan is to present the revised budget to the March meeting. Potentially April, but my intent is to bring the revised budget for FY '24 in March. Most likely, there will be some slight revenue adjustments, especially if our enrollment is still trending up a little bit. And of course, there's going to be some increased expenditures.
All right. Thank you. And then as we look at Fund 6, I know that, well, we can talk about that later. That's really, the money for that is going to be coming out of a couple different places. And will that show up in our revenues?
Correct.
Okay.
We have a bond for one of the pots of money.
Yep.
And as we spend in that pot of money for LTFM, which is the old health and safety, every month when we do work, or every other month, I will go into Skyward, collect the data of how many dollars we've spent, and then I contact our financial people, and they then wire the money to us to reimburse us. So we have to spend it first, and then we can ask for the money.
And then that money will then show up in this report for us each month?
Correct, in Fund 6.
In Fund 6, all right. So, great, thank you. We're looking at fundraisers report for January 2023. We have some fundraisers out of East Girls Basketball, East the Fashion Club, they had a bake sale, Ordine East Middle School for their Ordine East Student Council, they had a coin drive, and then Stowe, what a great trip for our elementary school students to go to Wolf Ridge. So our Stowe students were selling beef sticks so that they could raise the money they needed to go to Wolf Ridge.
I'd like it to be known that I purchased a beef stick and found it to be quite delicious.
They are good beef sticks, too. Piedmont has sold a beef stick or two for that as well. That's awesome. Great. Moving on to bids, RFPs, and quotes. We have one RFP for electrical engineering services. And this is, two vendors have responded with two following results: Design Tree and Noble Electric. That's some huge difference.
So we've talked about this before, I think, when, at this meeting, actually. So the difference between the two of these, and you can see kind of by the narrative, is the Noble Bright Schools, they do only a performance contract. And so their cost here is really for us to get in the door, but then all the costs in addition is a performance contract. So it's not an apples to apples, and we did actually reach out to them and say, we would like you to provide us with a quote that was more consistent with what we were asking in the RFP, and they came back with the same amount. So we just don't believe that it is a comparative to the bid that we asked for as what Design Tree provided, and they followed our RFP completely, which is why we're wanting to award it to the Design Tree. And that allows us also to use LTFM funds, and we basically manage it ourselves and pay for it as we go through this process, rather than relying on a company that then will do a performance contract based on the results.
Okay, so then just this RFP is for work that will be done at the former DFT building? Or I'm just losing track of where this is going.
Nope, these will be done for electrical lighting at schools.
Oh, at schools. Okay, so this is LTFM, this is just maintenance and stuff. Okay, perfect.
So it's to replace the lights with updated LED lights. And
Okay, thank you for that.
I have a question about, so you said Noble Electric had something called a performance contract? Is that what it is? Is there a reason why we only got two bids? Do a lot of electrical engineering services prefer to go that route? Is that why we only got one? Is there a way, just kind of wondering about that?
I'm not sure why there would only be two. It might be that it's a pretty niche type of work. The performance contract, and maybe Executive Director Zunich can help me out with this, because it does have a payback component, and so you're kind of taking a loan out. Simone, am I correct in that?
You are correct. It's written in number 3, only does performance contract, meaning the district would make payments with interest for a set amount of years through a funding source. And you cannot use LTFM funding. So basically, you would go out and borrow the money and make payments on it as they come in and do the work. And go ahead.
And the performance piece is kind of based on how much they're saving you. So they put in an LED light, and your electrical savings is X amount. You're paying them based on the performance changes. So it's still somewhat of an unknown amount that you might be paying. I think there's a lot of unknowns with that, even though, they provide some guarantees, but the loan process was just a little unnerving for us.
Yeah, absolutely. That the other way makes more sense to me, but thanks for explaining it. It's helpful.
Just catch up here real quick. All right, just wanted to make sure I'm thinking things correctly. Now we're moving on to contracts, change orders, and leases. We have the Lowell Elementary School Building Envelope and Cafeteria Expansion Project. You're back on it, Executive
Back on.
Director.
So you may be aware, I think you are aware that we have been working on a project with Lowell. A big part of that came from some damage that was noticed in part of the flooding that happened in the spring. So as a result of that, and kind of doing some research in what needed to be done, they came up with the projects. A big part of it was, some window replacements and some other components. And if you look on the very last page of this document, you will kind of see what the scope of work is. So this is really the agreement with ICS to help manage this project, similar to how they managed the project that this building that we're sitting in. Right now, you can see there's a base, and then there's 3 alternates, and we are leaning towards, and I believe are at the point of choosing alternate 2 to move forward, but I think that's kind of finalizing the cost and different things through the budgeting process.
And is the money for this coming from LTFM? Yes. Okay, so this would be part of some of the work that we've done for, sorry, go ahead.
They intend to use all LTFM for any of the interior projects, but again, LTFM cannot cover brand-new walls. So if anything that needs to be put up that's a brand-new wall, it would have to come out of our general capital fund.
Great, do we have any questions on this project? All righty. Moving on, now we're in information, so none of the stuff that we talk about moving forward will be on the consent agenda. And I think one thing we want to send it back to Executive Director Severance is to talk about the pay equity report.
Certainly. So the pay equity report is a compliance report that we are required to file with the state every 3 years. The last time we filed it actually was January of '22, because it was not filed prior to me coming in the proper year. So, but we're on time now. So what this really does is ensures that we are paying our female employees doing similar type of work that's evaluated similarly, the same as male employees, to make sure there's no gender inequities there. So the pieces that I'm gonna just pull up here if you pull up that Compliance Pay Equity Report 2024, this is the report. We put in all the information, so we put in every job that we have here, the minimum and maximum salary in the pay grid, as well as the number of male and female employees that are in those positions. And then the state's statistical back end does a whole bunch of data sorting. Thank goodness we don't have to do that ourselves. And then it comes up with this analysis compliance report. And so it basically just gives some general information, the job class information, the analysis test, and then there's different components, the underpayment ratios, and if you pass and don't pass. Typically, you'd see an underpayment ratio of 80 or 0, but if it is something other than that, which we see ours is not, then you go to this testing results, and there's a whole different scope of, depending on the number of jobs, what that is. But we are in compliance based on this. The salary range test, you want to have over an 80, which we have an 80. And then the exceptional service pay, you want to have something higher than 90. So we are in compliance. One thing to note, as I was doing this, I think we will find that some of our contracts have long periods of time before they hit the top of their pay scale. So that definitely will have an effect. Food service is one that jumped out to me when I was putting together all the data, because they have quite a long time to get to the top of their pay scale, and it's a female-dominated most of the positions. So it's something that we'll want to look at next time we go into negotiations, maybe reducing the time it takes to get to the top, or adjusting it so that we won't be out of compliance in the future.
And Director Severance, I'll take a little bit of time when I'm off this, but the underpayment ratio, can you talk to me a little bit about that underpayment ratio? You said you want something either at 0 or at 80?
0 or 80 are kind of the key
Okay.
the key pockets. I'm not sure that I can explain it very well to you.
I'm gonna, okay.
But it's really just looking at underpayment, how the females are underpaid compared to the
Compared to
males.
males.
And so again, it's kind of that number is a statistical analysis component, which is why then it defaults to the t-test results, which takes additional information and kind of puts it in another statistical analysis to ensure that even though the underpayment ratios do not hit those 2 targets, it still is within the threshold of being compliant.
All righty, thank you. Do we have any questions on our pay equity report?
I don't know if I should ask the question. It's going to probably sound a little different, but because of changing gender identities, how does this fit? You said male, female, but what about other categories?
There is a category in reporting for non-binary. To be honest, I am not sure how it calculates into the backside, but they do ask for that, and we do report that. But when it comes to this final report, I don't think that is considered as part of the compliance piece at this point.
I just want to take a moment to say thank you for making sure that we're getting this done. It's an important piece of reporting and an important piece for us to consider as we work on improving systems. So thank you, Executive Director Severance.
All right, now we move on to our expenditure contracts. You can see a list of those expenditure contracts on page 40 and 41. Do we have any questions on any of the expenditure contracts? All right, next, moving on to the no-cost contracts. We have one no-cost contract signed with Mark Perna from CTE Professional Development Presentation, Unleashing Your Passion, Purpose, and Performance in Younger Generations. And then finally, last, we have no revenue contracts this month. Want. Simone and I like to see those revenue contracts. And then lastly, on page 167, we have our grant application being put in by Danette Sebo for Northeast Service Cooperative CTE for our career and technical education, $18,000. So this is for the professional speaker that will be talking to all of our workforce partners. I would make a note that there was a great article, I think it was in today's Duluth News Tribune, that focused on our CTE, our career and technical education, and talked about how the district is looking to expand and beef up that CTE work. That is really something that as a district we have a commitment to, and that is why we are coming to our community and asking again for that referendum to be passed in May. Do we have any questions on our grant application? Great. That concludes all of the work that we have to do today in our HR Business Services Committee, and we are finished at 5:12. We will see you at the full school board meeting. Thank you.